Most people think of Amtrak as a way to get between big cities. But on this train you can ride straight out of Washington, D.C., into the Blue Ridge, and right through America's newest national park. This is the Cardinal. And this is Trains to the Parks. In this episode, we're riding one of Amtrak's most overlooked routes, the Cardinal, to see how far a single train can get us into America's national parks. Just like we did with the Lakeshore Limited and the Silver Meteor, we're starting in a big city and following the line out into nature. This time trading coasts and lakes for the Blue Ridge and a deep Appalachian gorge. Our journey begins here at Washington Union Station. From this platform, the Cardinal will carry us through Virginia horse country to Charlottesville, our rail gateway to Shenandoah National Park and Skyline Drive. Then we'll stay with the same train as it winds into West Virginia and actually passes through New River Gorge National Park and Preserve, stopping at a tiny retro station hidden right inside the canyon. There is one catch: the Cardinal only runs 3 days a week. Westbound trains roll out on Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday, and eastbound trains return on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. That means there's no way to do quick one-night stopovers. Instead, we're building in 2 nights in each gateway, 2 nights in Charlottesville for Shenandoah, and 2 nights near New River Gorge so we can actually enjoy the parks and still meet the next train. Let's grab our bags, find our car, and see what this secret national park train can do. Before we talk about hidden trips and national parks, let's remind ourselves what the Cardinal actually is. This isn't a little regional shuttle that runs a few hours down the line. The Cardinal is one of Amtrak's classic long-distance routes, a 3 times weekly train that connects New York City and Chicago by cutting diagonally across the country through Washington, Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. It's named for the bright red state bird shared by several of the states it serves, and it was designed as a scenic train first and a straight-line connection second. Instead of following a big interstate corridor, the Cardinal threads a much older path, past Civil War battlefields and university towns, over the Blue Ridge, along the Kanawha River, and then right into the cliffs of the New River Gorge before it finally works its way out to the Midwest. Hidden inside that quirky, low-frequency route is a chance to ride one train from big coastal cities, straight into the Blue Ridge and right through New River Gorge National Park. The trade-off is that because it only runs 3 days a week, you have to slow down and give yourself 2-night layovers in the places where you want to explore. That's exactly how we've built this trip. So how does the Cardinal actually turn into a train to the parks? On paper, it's just a long line from New York to Chicago. But there are 2 key bends in that line that matter for us. The first is Charlottesville, Virginia, a small university city that sits just below the Blue Ridge and gives us rail access to Shenandoah National Park and Skyline Drive with a short hop up into the mountains. The second is the stretch through southern West Virginia, where the tracks drop into the New River Gorge and stop at tiny stations like Prince that are effectively inside New River Gorge National Park and Preserve. In this episode, we're going to ride the Cardinal to both of those spots. First to Charlottesville for a 2-night Blue Ridge stop that gives us a full Shenandoah day. Then deeper into West Virginia for a 2-night stay in and around New River Gorge before we see the train again. Once we're on board, the Cardinal feels very different from a short corridor train. We've got coaches, a cafe car, and sleepers farther back for the folks going all the way to Chicago. I'm riding in coach for this trip, because that's how most people will experience this route, and it keeps the focus on the views out the window, rather than the room itself. Leaving Washington, the first few minutes are classic Northeast corridor yards, warehouses, and suburbs flashing past. But it doesn't take long before the train starts to slow, the tracks narrow, and the landscape opens up. The concrete gives way to farms, forests, and those first low Virginia hills that hint at the Blue Ridge ahead. On a good day, it's about 3 hours from D.C. to Charlottesville. On a bad day, long-distance Amtrak trains like this can easily be half an hour to an hour late. That's another reason we're planning a full 2-night stay in Charlottesville. The long layover means we can sit back, enjoy the ride, and not worry about squeezing a park day around a tight train connection. We've made it to Charlottesville, our first big stop on this journey. This is a small, walkable city with a university campus, a historic downtown, and just enough transit and rental car options to make it a really practical rail gateway. From here it's about 45 minutes to an hour by car up to Skyline Drive in Shenandoah National Park. Because the Cardinal only runs 3 days a week, we're treating this as a 2-night layover. Tonight is all about settling in, checking into a hotel, grabbing some dinner, and getting ready for an early start tomorrow. Tomorrow will be our full Shenandoah Park day. The day after that, we'll slow down and explore Charlottesville and Monticello, before we walk back to the station to rejoin the next westbound Cardinal. This morning we're trading platforms for park roads and heading up to Shenandoah National Park. From Charlottesville, it's roughly an hour's drive to the southern end of Skyline Drive. There's no direct shuttle from the station, so you'll either rent a car or arrange a local driver or tour. We've got the luxury of a full day in the park because the next westbound Cardinal doesn't come through until 2 days after we arrived. Our goal isn't to see everything. We're aiming for one short, high-reward hike and a handful of classic overlooks that you can realistically fit into a single, unrushed, rail-friendly park day. We've made it onto Skyline Drive, and if you've only ever seen the Blue Ridge from far away, this is where it starts to make sense. Our hero hike here is Black Rock Summit. It's only about a mile round trip, which makes it perfect if your train the day before was running late, or if the weather's a bit iffy. The trail starts gently through the trees and then suddenly you're out on a pile of boulders with a full panorama of the Shenandoah Valley and layer after layer of blue ridges fading into the distance. This is exactly why we built in a 2-night stop here. Instead of rushing, we can hit Black Rock, stop at a few Skyline Drive overlooks, walk a tiny section of the Appalachian Trail if we want to, and still get back to Charlottesville before dark. One long-distance train ride and a modest drive. And we've had a real Blue Ridge experience without having to keep one eye on tomorrow's departure time. Today is our second full day in Charlottesville, and this one is all about the town itself and a bit of nearby history before we get back on the train and head for the gorge. Because the westbound Cardinal doesn't leave until late this afternoon, we have a relaxed morning to enjoy the city. The station is just a short walk from the historic downtown mall, so we're starting there with coffee, breakfast, and a wander down the brick pedestrian street to get a feel for the town that's been our base camp. With a little extra time before we need to think about the platform, there's one side trip that's hard to skip. Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's hilltop home. It's only a short drive from downtown, so it fits easily into a half day. Even if you don't do the full interior tour, the grounds and the view from the hilltop are impressive. From up here you really get a sense of how he saw this landscape. The rolling Virginia countryside in every direction and the Blue Ridge on the horizon. It's a beautiful place with a complicated story. Monticello was a working plantation built and sustained by enslaved people, and any visit here has to hold both of those truths at the same time. Jefferson, the writer of the Declaration of Independence, and Jefferson, the enslaver whose wealth and ideas were tied to this land. For this trip, this is just a quick stop. A look at the exterior. A moment to acknowledge that history. And then we're heading back down the hill to return the rental car and meet the Cardinal for the next leg of our journey into New River Gorge. With our Blue Ridge days behind us, it's time to get back to what this series is all about, the train. We've dropped off the rental car, walked our bags back down to the Charlottesville station, and we're waiting for the next westbound Cardinal to pull in. This is the same train we rode down from Washington. It's just further along on its journey toward West Virginia and, eventually, Chicago. On paper, it's a little over 3 hours from here to Prince, West Virginia, but as we've already seen, long-distance trains don't always stick to the minute. The nice thing is that our new River Gorge plan also uses a 2-night stay. We've already built in an arrival night, a full gorge day, and a departure day to rejoin the train, so it doesn't really matter if the Cardinal is half an hour late. We can relax, watch the landscape tighten up, and roll into the gorge whenever we get there. Back on board, the character of the route starts to change again. The soft Virginia hills give way to steeper ridges. The rivers run closer to the tracks. The towns get smaller and farther apart. This is where the Cardinal earns its reputation as one of the most scenic routes in the East. For the next few hours we'll follow valleys and riverbanks across the state line into West Virginia. The light drops, the curves get sharper, and eventually the line dives into the New River Gorge. By the time we step off, we won't be in a big hub city. We'll be at a tiny station that feels frozen in time, tucked inside a national park. This is Prince, West Virginia. It doesn't look like much. One low, curved building, a single platform, and a whole lot of trees. But this little Art Moderne depot sits right in the new River Gorge corridor. And it's one of the only places in America where a long-distance train still stops essentially inside a national park. Because the Cardinal only runs 3 days a week and it tends to arrive in the evening, we're not trying to cram the gorge into a quick overnight. Instead, we've booked 2 nights here. Tonight to arrive and get our bearings. Tomorrow is a full new River Gorge day, and the following day to meet the next Cardinal when it comes back through. We've arranged a pickup from here into the Fayetteville area, where we'll stay for both nights. Welcome to New River Gorge National Park and Preserve. Today is our full middle day in the gorge. Yesterday we arrived on the train and settled into our base. Tomorrow we'll head back to Prince to see the Cardinal again. That gap in the schedule is what makes it realistic to fit in a hike, the bridge, and sometime down by the river without watching the clock. We're starting with the Long Point Trail. It's a few miles round trip, rolling and manageable, and it ends at one of the most dramatic overlooks in the park, a rocky spur that sticks out into the canyon with a straight-on view of the new River Gorge Bridge. This is the classic postcard shot of the park. From up here you can see the bridge, the river, and the rail line all in one frame. Yesterday we arrived on that train. Today we're looking down on the tracks from a cliff edge. Next up is the canyon rim area, where you can see the bridge from the opposite side. The overlooks near the visitor center give you easy access to that massive steel arch and the river corridor below. If you want to take it even further, you can join a bridge walk. A guided harnessed walk along the catwalk under the bridge, hundreds of feet above the river. It's one of the few places in the national park system where you can literally walk inside a highway bridge. Even if you just stick to the overlooks, this is a perfect place to explain where we are. A park built around a working river canyon, a massive piece of infrastructure, and an active rail line that brought us here. To finish the day, we're heading down closer to the water. Depending on the season and water levels, you can sign up for a half-day whitewater rafting trip, choose a gentler float, or simply hike to a riverside access point and watch the rafts and the trains go by. However you do it, getting down to river level changes your perspective. Up top you see scale. Down here you feel current, noise, and the way the gorge walls close in around you. We've had our full gorge day Long Point, the bridge overlooks, and time by the river, and now we're heading back toward Prince to meet the next Cardinal. Because the train only comes through 3 days a week, this departure has been on the calendar since we first booked the trip. The good news is that our 2-night stay means we're not scrambling. We can check out, make our way back to the station, and let the Cardinal pick us up whenever it arrives. Over the last few days, we've used one long-distance train as the backbone for 2 very different park experiences. The Cardinal carried us out of Washington and down to Charlottesville, where a 2-night stay and a short drive put us on Skyline Drive and on top of a Blue Ridge summit. Then it brought us here to a tiny station in New River Gorge, where another 2-night stay gave us time to hike, stare up at that massive bridge, and get down close to the river. It wasn't fast. The train only runs 3 days a week. We had to build in extra nights and be okay with it running late. But that's also the point. Instead of blasting down the interstate, we stitched together a journey where the ride is part of the destination, where small stations become gateways. And one lesser-known train line opens the door to 2 national parks. Before we wrap up, let's talk honestly about money, timing, and what this train is actually like to ride. On the money side, the Cardinal can be as simple or as splurgy as you want it to be. If you're trying to keep costs down, you can ride coach the whole way. Washington to Charlottesville to Prince, and put your budget into hotels and park days instead. If you'd rather have a bed on the longer stretches, a roomette will cost more upfront. But it includes your meals and gives you a door you can close, which matters if you're sensitive to overnight travel. Either way, remember that you're building in 2 nights in Charlottesville and 2 nights near New River Gorge. So this isn't a quick weekend. It's a trip where lodging becomes a big part of the budget. For timing, this is very much a 3-season route. Shenandoah and Skyline Drive shine in late spring, summer, and especially fall when the leaves change. And New River Gorge feels best when the trails are clear and the river isn't locked into winter conditions. You can ride the Cardinal year-round, but if you want both parks to really, with October being your peak Blue Ridge foliage, window and late spring through early fall giving you the most reliable trail and river conditions in the gorge. And then there are delays. Long-distance Amtrak trains like the Cardinal share tracks with freight, and they're not shy about running late. Being 30 minutes an hour, even a couple of hours behind schedule, is not unusual. And every once in a while you'll see something bigger. That's why this itinerary bakes in 2-night stays and why I never plan same-day flights or expensive tours right after getting off this train. If you treat the timetable as a suggestion and build in buffers on both ends, the delays become part of the story instead of a crisis. Now let's turn that into a simple how to book this plan and talk about who can realistically do it. Start by breaking the Cardinal up into 2 legs. Leg 1 is Washington, D.C. to Charlottesville. Leg 2 on the Amtrak train is Charlottesville to Prince, West Virginia, with the option to continue on towards Chicago if you want the full ride. Once those rail pieces are in place, add your lodging. 2 nights in Charlottesville so you have 1 full Shenandoah day. And 2 nights in the new River Gorge area with a base around Fayetteville, so you can actually enjoy the gorge instead of just waving at it from the window. For local transport, think in terms of short, targeted car time instead of a giant road trip. In Charlottesville, there's no park shuttle that runs straight from the station to Skyline Drive, so you'll need a rental car, a local driver, or a small tour to get you up into Shenandoah and back in roughly an hour each way. In New River Gorge, don't expect a taxi line waiting at Prince Station. You'll want a pre-arranged pickup or a rental car lined up, so you can get from the platform into town and back again on departure day. This is still a train-first trip, but the last few miles to the parks do depend on wheels. If accessibility or energy is a concern, you can still build a great version of this itinerary. In Shenandoah, you can stick to Skyline Drive pullouts, shorter, mostly paved or packed dirt viewpoints, and a brief walk on the Appalachian Trail near a road crossing without committing to long, steep hikes. In New River Gorge, you can choose boardwalked overlooks, easier rim trails, and riverside access points over more rugged backcountry routes. The idea isn't to prove how far you can walk, it's to prove that a single, slightly quirky train line can carry you from a big East Coast city into the Blue Ridge and a national park gorge, at whatever pace and activity level actually works for you. If you've ever wondered whether you can use Amtrak, not a rental car, as your main engine for exploring national parks in the East, the Cardinal proves that you can. It just asks you to slow down, add those 2-night layovers, and let the rails set the pace. Thanks for riding along on this Trains to the Parks trip. If you enjoyed this, check out our other episodes, and I'll see you on the next train.